Good afternoon, welcome, and thanks for tuning in to today's U-Talk on this sunny afternoon. Our topic for today is how to build a hardware company. In this session, you'll learn about how a startup started from zero to one of the most successful industrial B2B hardware companies in Germany, and what kind of important and maybe also painful leadership decisions you have to take when you're a fast-growing company. In today's case, I'm talking about ProGlove, the world market leader for intelligent gloves in various Industry 4.0 applications. Founded in 2014, receiving first funding in early 2016, launching the product in late 2016, and scaling quickly in the years after with a Series A funding of almost 7 million in 2018 and a Series B in 2019 of 40 million. It's a very impressive success story, and I have to say, we're also an alumni startup of Tech Founders, the accelerator program of Unternehmertum, and I'm very happy to talk to the two founders, Thomas and Paul, today. They will share their insights on how they tackled the early challenges as a hardware company and also how they've learned various leadership lessons along the way. As always, we'll have to talk for the first 20-25 minutes, and feel free to post your questions on the right side of your screen, and I'll pick them up in the Q&A after the interview. So with that, let's welcome Thomas Kirchner. With his heart and mind, he always has the vision of the company in his view. Whether technical, people, or business aspects, he always has a plan and communicates it in a catchy way, as he says, and his motivation is contagious, as the team tells us. Before he founded ProGlove, Thomas founded some companies during his studies. For example, an online shop with a green philosophy, together with his, or today's co-founder of ProGlove, Paul, back in 2008. And he also founded a consulting agency for human-centered innovation. After he had finished his studies, Thomas worked as a consultant and coach for human-centered innovation and design thinking in St. Gallen, and then founded ProGlove. So welcome, Thomas.
Hello. And I never...
Next, we also have Paul Günther, and the inventive talent. He transforms ideas into prototypes overnight, such as Smart Glove. Paul studied technology and management at the Technical University of Munich and got the idea of founding ProGlove during his time at BMW when he was doing his PhD. And as already mentioned, Paul and Thomas founded their first company in 2008, so quite a while ago, before they then started ProGlove.
Yeah, I finished my...
Okay. So you guys met at university in Munich. So how did you get to know each other, and how did you know that it would be a good fit that you two start a company together?
So we actually met each other at a Unternehmertum event. It was the first summer school, so for entrepreneurship from all the entrepreneurship centers in Munich. And it was the first summer school, and I think it was also about green stuff. And then by chance, we ended up in the same team. And there were two other people in the team, and then we worked together for a week roughly. And then already in that week, we kind of felt, okay, it works very well together. So he likes to do a lot of stuff that I don't like to do, and vice versa. So it just felt like something is working. And then shortly after that experience, we actually decided, hey, maybe we can do more from what we did in this week, and then founded our first company together.
Okay. So let's start with the first steps of ProGlove. How did you come up with the idea, and how did you also know that it was really something the market was looking for?
I worked for BMW as a tour guide. So I was showing people like every day how BMW produces cars, all the technologies and so forth. So I spent a lot of time in the factory, and I had to learn all about all the technologies and processes. And during the time, there were two things that became apparent. So one thing was like everything was about efficiency. So there was, for example, a colleague on the main assembly line, and he had like put like tapes inside the car, and he had a dispenser, taking them off the dispenser, putting it in the car. And when he had a little bit more time, he put the tape everywhere on his clothing, everywhere. So he just were faster the next time because he just took it off his shirt or his jeans. And this was something you saw everywhere. So everyone was looking into how to improve efficiency. And the other thing was, like, in the industry, you have certain things like helmets, safety vests, safety shoes, and also gloves. And so we thought, hey, that's might be a good idea to make a smart glove to help this guy that does like work 8 hours on the assembly line, doing maybe this a single step 1,000 times, and making his day easier, but also helping the manager to save some costs in the end of the day. And that was the beginning. And yeah, we had a lot of prototypes on the way. And at some point, we arrived at a product that we have today. So that is actually the device mounted on the glove, and you have the trigger. And what it basically mainly does at the moment, it is scanning barcodes. So I have a barcode here, and I'm just aiming at it, and then I can scan it. And that saves already 4 seconds because you don't need to go and grab the scanning pistol anymore. And we save even more by the device that Thomas has, where we integrated a display now. So you can't only acquire the data, you also get feedback, for example, which is the next part that you want to pick in the warehouse. So you don't need to look at any screens or at any mobile devices. You have it all at your hand, and that saves you a lot of time and is way more ergonomic than all the other solutions on the market.
Okay. Was it difficult to convince people in the beginning that this would be a product they really needed? And was it difficult to get financing too for that?
So convincing the customers, I think, wasn't that hard because we are actually saving money. So if you go to BMW and tell them, hey, we are saving 4 seconds per documentation, you're doing 1,000 documentations per car and you're building 1,000 cars a day. So it's 1,000 times 1,000 times 3 to 4 seconds. They buy that. So if they see you can actually save money, they're going to buy your product. So if you have a strong value proposition, it's not a big problem. On the investor side, it was a little bit harder because most of the investors are focused on software. So going into an investor meeting and saying, hey, we are doing purely hardware, it's not the best pitch in the last 5 years, just because all the investors are focused on software. So we had, at the beginning at least, a little bit harder time to find the right investors. Of course, there's the hardware investors. You just have to find the right investors for you.
Yeah. So you founded your company now 6 years ago, right? So I must imagine it must have been quite a journey so far with the different funding rounds, growing the team, expanding the product portfolio, and so forth. What would you say were the hardest lessons you had to learn in the past years?
Yeah, for myself, that was if you put a lot of time and a lot of effort in a new product, and you always think you're really close to the solution and to something that the customer will buy. But at some point you need to make the decision and say, okay, it's probably not the right thing and we need to move on. And that is, yeah, something we also had to do. And then this is also why we name our products after former boyfriends and girlfriends from the team. So this product is called Mark. It's a former boyfriend of an employee, and
Okay.
because it's also like sometimes you have to lose something that you really love, and that's also the case when you put a lot of time into prototypes and meeting customer and discussing about the product, improving it. But at some point you need to move on, and that is really hard. Yeah.
And I think the amazing thing about founding a company is that your company changes constantly. So also for everyone, welcome here in our office. So that's the ProGlove office behind me. At the moment, because of Corona, not a lot of people are here, but if you see people, they're actually working. And we are kind of distracting them from work. But the company changes constantly. So I have the feeling every year our company changed completely. And now we are 200 people in this huge office, and we started with just 8 people in this little tech founders office, where basically we also slept on the floor in the office. So your company constantly changes, and it surprises me every day how much it changes, and that you have to completely solve different problems. And you think you reach a state where you think, okay, now it's kind of okay. I think I have control, and then something happens, and again you start from the beginning, and there's no control, and you have to figure out how to solve that. And I think that's also the fun part, but it's also the stressful part.
Okay. So I also think so. When I talk to founders who have had to rapidly scale a company, I think it's often very much underestimated that in the beginning it's all about the product, right? You develop the product, you finalize it, you make it perfect, and then as the company grows, it's really more about different leadership topics, administrative topics that you have to run, and you have people working on the product. Of course, probably you still also work on the product, but I think the skill set that is needed to run or to really start a successful startup is much, much different from the skill set that you need when you have 300 people. So how do you think, who helped you to prepare for that journey or prepare for that change? And how can also founders prepare for that change better?
So I think the big luck we had that we have 2 people in our founding team. So we were 4 founders or 5 founders, but 4 who worked actually here. And 2 of them, they are actually managers. So Paul and me, we are product people. We like to tinker and to think about products and to pitch products. And then we have Jonas and Manuel, and they are actually managers. They are good at scaling stuff. So we had from the beginning kind of always this mixture about focusing on the product, but at the same time having processes, having some procedures and stuff like this. So we had just had luck with our founding team. And then we also, so we talked to a lot of investors, of course. Investors always say they can help everywhere. Mostly they are just money, but of course they try to help you. And again, we had luck with one of our investors who was, especially for me, so I was the CEO for the first 4.5 years, and kind of a mentor. So whenever I had to make a tough call or a hard decision, I tended to call him and have a talk with him. And also our 5th founder, so Alex, he never worked operationally in the company, but he is roughly 15 years older. He just got 50 years old. So that's a very tough time for him in his life, I think. But he's older than we are, so he always was a mentor to me. So you have people that mentor you, and the rest is just learning by doing it. So you learn, you do it, and then you learn it.
I guess it's also an unusual mix, right? That you already had different kind of competencies in the team, different age groups. That's also like often not a given. If you're a founder or if you're 2 co-founders working on a product, what would your first advice be if they really want to scale quickly?
Prototyping, probably. Paul, you want to explain?
Okay, let's say they have a finished product, but now really want to scale their company. Like, what would the key advice be that you would give them?
So if you want to scale something, first you need to find a product that works. If you have a product, then you need to find someone who's actually scaled a company before. Then founding a company and scaling a company is something completely different. For us, it was after 4.5 years, we've found a new CEO. So scaling a company is something completely different. So find someone who actually scaled something before.
And if I can add here, so you also need to let loose. So we see startups, they have a great team in the beginning, but at some point you come to your limits. And then you need to realize this as a founder, and then you need to step back and you need to get rid of maybe some fancy titles and need to give this title someone else from the outside that does this job better. And then you look for something else. And this is sometimes hard for founders, and we still see people in positions where we think, there could be someone else maybe doing a better job at that point, and you need to see this as a that was a journey in the beginning, and now you need to find something else, and that's sometimes hard for people.
I would imagine that that's super hard, especially if it's your baby and your product, and it's something that you've worked on for years and years. And I mean, Thomas, you mentioned it in 2018, you guys hired an outside CEO, Andreas König. When would you say, or how did you realize that you really wanted to hire an outside CEO? And yeah, how did you get to the decision to really hire someone from outside?
So first of all, it was a very personal decision, because being a CEO is it's not the best job in the world. It's very stressful. You have to make lots of decisions, and it's just stressful. And from the beginning, being a founder and being a CEO is something completely different, in my view, at least. And so after 4 years, I just felt I don't want to do it anymore. It wasn't fun for me going into the office every day and doing it. And just because the challenges in the company just changed. So I wasn't prepared to solve these challenges. And also, if you want to get the company to the next level, so I talked about change before, and change is often necessary to get a company to the next level. And then if you have this as a goal, so kind of growing your company from 10 million in revenue to 100 million in revenue, and you know, okay, I've never done it, I'm not prepared to do this. Let's find a professional who's actually done it before. So this was really getting the company to the next level. Felt like, okay, then we need to professionalize also our management. And I brought the company to roughly 100 people and roughly 10 million revenue. And then luckily we found Andreas, and he was the CEO of TeamViewer before. And I think we caught him in the right time of his life, and he was really, really happy to take charge here and get our company to the next level. And also, so in that moment, our company, but also our investors were very surprised. So I remember the meeting where I sat there and said, okay, you see that guy beside me, that's the new CEO. And everyone was shocked. So they didn't saw that coming.
So when you didn't involve them in the decision, you took the decision on your own in the team?
So we involved the investors, of course, but we didn't involve the company, basically. So this was a process just between the investors and founders and finding a new CEO. And especially the company was a little bit shocked, but just surprised, I think. But first, when I talked to the investors first, hey, I want to look for a new CEO, they were also kind of surprised.
So it was not the investors who said, hey, you guys should think about it, but you guys were more like, we see some changes coming. It's not really what I want to do anymore, and let's find a solution for that. So it was more your initiative.
So in that moment, it was more my initiative, but probably half a year later, they would have said that. So I just was first. And I think most of the investors have that problem in their portfolio, that they have founders that don't want to let go from their companies. And the investors see, hey, we need actually professional management to get the company to the next level. And then they have to get convince the founders somehow to let go. And I think most our investors just were happy that we came to the conclusion on our own and said, yeah, we'll find someone new one. This guy is great. Let's do it.
Let's talk a little bit more about the investors, maybe. So you said in the beginning it was really hard to find the fitting investors because you were a hardware company. How did you go about finding the right ones? How did you convince them? And what would also your advice be to founders who are looking for investors if they have a hardware company?
Absolutely.
You can start.
So our first step actually in the company was we take part on a big competition from Intel, and we won. The whole package was $250,000. So our first investment, our seed investment, was basically winning a competition. So that helped, of course, because then you're not looking for seed capital. And then for our Series A round, we had the luck we found a great family office that was supporting us. We found Inter Capital that was supporting us, and Bayern Capital, so basically the Bavarian State Fund. So just by talking to a lot of investors, we found the right fit for our company at that time. And we always liked this mixture about one family office, one strategic investor, and one state investor. And then the rest is basically traction. So if you want to convince investors, you need traction. And traction means basically selling something most of the times, especially for B2B business, can be pilot projects. For B2C businesses, could be just the users. But the more traction you have, the easier it is to convince an investor to get money into your company. So always look for traction and try to how to show traction. So from the beginning, we always had a guy in the team who was good at shooting videos. He's still in the company, Tarek. He's a great guy. And basically, whenever we had a pilot project, we made a fancy video about that. And showing your progress and showing that to investors looks much more real than just having it on a slide. So if you have traction, try to kind of bubble it up a little.
Yeah, if I can add here, so two more things. Many look in the US for funding, and we also had a discussion of moving over and setting up the company there. But it doesn't make sense, like because our first customers, they were here around in Munich, and that didn't make sense. Also for the hardware company, we had a really good network here for all the companies that helped us building the product. And that is something, it's a bit more difficult in the US than the possibilities we have here in Germany. And so in the end, we decided to stay here, and we think that was the right decision. And the other thing about funding is, like, you hear all these great stories and this really, really large amount of money some companies are raising. But the best is, of course, if you do not need to raise money because you find other ways, because then in the end, you as a founder, you have more shares on the company, and you can make other decisions. It's not like if you have a good investor, he helps you like finding the right decisions. But if you get pushed from round to round and get like bigger sums, in the end there is little stake that you still have in the company. So if you can do it with less outside capital or like venture capital, the better.
Yeah, so making revenue is always a good idea.
So you told me earlier, when you were in the Tech Founders Accelerator program, that must have been 2015, probably 5 years ago, you did a pilot project with Festo. Did the accelerator back then and also the pilot project help you in gaining traction and also gain experience on how to work with corporates?
Absolutely. So the cool thing about Tech Founders is it connects you directly to the right people at the company. So it was much easier to get into Festo than to get into other companies. And also at Festo, we did a really nice video about what we did there. And it's still one of the most clicked videos we have on our YouTube channel. So Tech Founders really helped. And the cool thing about programs like that is that you have deadlines. So if you work just for yourself, sometimes you're not working into one direction. But if somebody says, hey, you have to have a pitch at that day, and you need a prototype at that day, then you're working in that direction. So we use most of our Tech Founder stuff as just structure and giving us a goal, and then we went for that goal.
Yeah, what was also super helpful was the exchange with the other startups in the program. So because like you feel like on a campus or so, like they're all next door, and you can just go there and talk to them. Then the makerspace was super helpful because at that point in time we didn't have a workshop. Like we basically built everything there in the lab over there, yeah, of course, like as Thomas said, all the not just access to the customers, but like to committed customers, and they you talk to them, and you can go the next day and show them your prototype, and it's not a long process to get in touch. That was super helpful, and of course the initial funding with no strings attached. That was something we never heard about, or I think that is still unique. Usually, if you go to an accelerator, they have a certain agenda and get some shares on your company. Not so with Tech Founders.
True. Thank you. There was much praise that I don't directly deserve because I wasn't on the team yet back then. But not much has changed basically in terms of what the terms and conditions are. So we're still operating the program with our corporate partners. It's still 25K without any strings attached. And startups always tell us that the pilot project is indeed very, very helpful because they get to the right points of contact, and they have the deadline of fulfilling a POC. So yeah, it helps the startups to really advance the product. Let's look at a few questions from the audience because it's already 25 past, and we have a few questions there. So one would be, how did you find the right investor? I think we covered that already. what's your most valuable tool or method to prototype your ideas? Who wants to answer?
So a part of the team has a background in design thinking. So not myself, I just joined, but Thomas and Alex. So they made their money basically from consultancy. And so they worked half of the year on consultant projects, and the other half of the year we used that money to build prototypes. And so this process, we transfer this into the industry and to the industry specifics. And that was super helpful because this is something the other companies don't do. Maybe in the consumer space, but not so much in the industrial space. And then for us, like the user being the most important part and designing everything around, that was then the competitive advantage that we had over all the other solutions. It's not that other companies can think about, hey, can we do a barcode scanner or data acquisition device on a make it wearable? But they do it in a very bad way for the user. And this is something where we had a lot of traction because we worked all the time with the user, and we still do. So we still have access, for example, to BMW. We go there with every prototype, and to many other customers with early prototypes, and we test it. And that was then what gave us the traction and figuring out a solution that someone will pay for and that will also someone use because it's good, it's ergonomic, and it makes the day easier.
So your number one tool is actually your customer. Go to your customer and just test your stuff.
Very good. Let's see. Next question. Any suggestions to find investors? So I guess there's some startups watching for looking for investors.
But maybe we can, so for us, what worked very well for us is competitions. So or pitching events, whatever. So we had a rule at the beginning that wherever we are offered a stage or wherever there's a stage, we try to get on that stage and pitch. So pitch as often as you can, because the more people see your product, the better actually your pitch gets. And in most of the audience of these kinds of events, there are investors, and then investors talk with investors. So the best case is you learn some, or you get to know some investors and pitch for them. If they say no, you say thank you for your no. Do you have any feedback? And do you know other people that would be interested in that? So always ask the investor that said no to you, who do you know that would be interested in that? And that's the number one way to get to other investors. And be prepared that from 100 pitches, you're going to hear 99 no's, or at least we did. Maybe other companies are more successful in that, but you're going to hear a lot of no's, and it's going to be very stressful.
And please don't do just slides. If you have like every company, even if you do something that is completely not physical like hardware, you can have a great demo that you can show, and you can even fake it a bit in the beginning because yes, maybe it's not stable internet connection whatsoever, but then please show that the thing is working and give them an idea about what you're doing and not just slides.
How much did you work with a vision in the beginning and not with what you can already do? Because I feel like many startups are also like thinking a little bit smaller here in Germany rather than in the US, where they always tell you the big vision, what they want to achieve eventually, but they can only do 1% of it today. How much, or how did you approach that?
Maybe not 99% to 1%, but we always had our software vision. So of course we are a hardware company and we are building a hardware product, but we always taught them about our software vision, and that's a software we can build on top of that hardware, and then we can actually make the big money. And actually today we are in the phase, so 6 years into the company, that we're actually building these products now, these software products. And but so it took us 6 years, but we're talking about the software vision from the beginning. So always make it a little bit bigger, even if you think you need 100 million in funding for that. Just talk about it, give them a fixed point where you maybe are in 10 years, and then go into the product. But some kind of vision always helps.
What did the investors who didn't want to invest tell you, and how did you not get discouraged by that?
Oh, we did get discouraged. So number one is you are not software, and building a hardware business is really hard. So please come back later, or if you have more traction. Then what we also heard is, so we are at the moment just investing in software, but we are building a new fund for hardware in 2 years from now, and you would be the poster child for that. So can we use your stuff, but we're not gonna invest, but we want to use your product for this fund to get money into our fund. Thank you. And
Okay.
so we heard a lot of strange things, but you just continue. That's one of the key things an entrepreneur does, is just continue.
Yeah, I think it's a bit like dating. You learn from the experience, and then you move on, and you make it better. And yeah, no hard feelings, and yeah.
So let's see. How did you make a living in the beginning, in the first months, in the first year? Is a question from the audience as well.
So I think so Heiko is one of the partners at TechFounders. At that time, Heiko actually worked for Siemens, and Siemens kind of bought us as design thinking consultants. So part of the team was 2 days a week. We worked with Heiko together at Siemens building something. And then with the money we earned at Siemens, we basically financed the whole company.
Okay.
So having this kind of these side projects can help at the beginning, but also we did a lot of competitions. So we tried to win competitions, and that was the other part of money. And then we didn't earn a lot of money, just so you need enough money to sleep somewhere and have food. That's basically it.
Yeah, for the first 5 years, I used a van instead of an apartment. So that saved me, I don't know, 60K or so over the time. So that's also one way, but I wouldn't recommend everyone doing this. Yeah. And we had also, especially in the beginning, a lot of people sleeping in the office. It's not completely legal. You can do it now with this size of the company, but you have very committed people that are really believing in your vision and what you achieve, and that have a lot of fun working together. And that drives the company. Yeah.
So another question, is Tesla your client, is someone asking?
We can't talk about this.
Very good. So how was it for you when you became the head of your employees, when your company got bigger and bigger? So I assume as hierarchies were more flat in the beginning, and then as you moved up and had to be more the boss to your employees, how did that feel?
So it's a harder process, but everyone gets that it is necessary. But of course, everyone needs to get used to it. It's actually also one of the reasons an outside or more professional management makes sense from time to time. So Andreas, as the CEO, he is over 50, I think. And the rest of the company, or most of the company, is between 20 and 30. And just by age, there is some kind of respect. And of course, Andreas is also a cool guy, and he's very, he knows a lot of things. But just by age, there's a hierarchy thing. And so sometimes it makes sense to hire someone who has more experience, because they're good at these roles and they have a natural kind of hierarchy.
Okay. Another question. So do you see a difference in decision making between you and the CEO, that you probably being more connected to the employees because you built the company over the years, whereas Andreas came in from the outside, probably also more detached to the product, the company, the people in the beginning?
So I wouldn't say he's detached, actually. So he's very into our company.
When he came in, when he first started, let's say, yeah.
Even when he first started, so he was really into everyone and talked to everyone. The biggest thing I learned is, so my leadership style is more like, let's wait and decide at the latest moment possible. Just to get a lot of perspectives and then to make the right decision. Andreas' leadership style is, we are deciding now. And that's basically it. So Andreas makes bigger decisions much quicker and then corrects. But that seems to be the better way on a long term. So I think as a founder, you're talking more to your colleagues. Also as a founding team, we were very democratic. So lots of discussions, and then you discuss as long as you need to, and then you find a solution. Andreas basically says, okay, we can discuss this now, but I'm going to decide this next. And everyone in our team was kind of relaxed because we knew, okay, I don't have to discuss now for an hour. He just decided it. We can talk about the next thing. So we all felt very relaxed when he came in, because finally someone who just decides stuff.
Yeah, also the number of decisions become like increasingly high number, and you won't be able to handle this anymore, like the style we had before.
Okay. So another question, is your glove also used to check who is the fastest worker? So probably comparing working time or something, or time needed to probably fulfill a task?
No. So you can, you never think about the worker itself, you think about the station. So sometimes you have basically 10 stations doing the same thing. And then you can say, so this station usually works a little bit faster than the others, but at that station, they're working 5 people over 3 shifts, so 15 people. So you never go down to the worker level, you always go down on the workplace level. So this one station, and then you can say stuff about the station, never about one worker.
Okay. And I think we have to come to the last question from the audience. So if you could go back in time and change one thing on how you grew the company, what would it be?
That's a hard question.
Sometimes we get a question if we make some big mistakes. So I don't have the feeling we made some big mistakes. We made a lot of small mistakes, and then you do a mistake and then you correct and you do a better thing. But there is no one big thing we would change, not in my mind. Ollie?
No, I wouldn't either change anything. Yeah.
That's very lucky then also, I think. Very good.
Yeah, it's painful, you learn a lot, but that's the process.
But we are surprisingly kind of successful, and we're very thankful for that. So yeah, happy.
So maybe a few last questions from my side. What drives you? What gets you up in the morning and makes you happy to go to work?
So one big reason, of course, are the people. So we just like to work with each other and working with really bright-minded people that are very creative. So that's one of the big reasons. And the other thing for me personally, I just don't like bad products. So I go to the inner city or through some kind of parts of the city, and I just see that's not a good product. Somebody didn't think about that process or about that thing. Why is it that painful to use? It just irks me. So I want to build better products for this world. And it irks me if I see a bad product.
Yeah, for me, it's that in a startup, you have a lot of influence on whatever, like a product, or maybe you're part of a different, like be it finance, whatsoever, and you have a lot of influence on setting this up. So this will later like definitely have your fingerprint, and so you're not doing whatever like a outside mirror piece of a large car or so, but you do the whole thing, and it will later have your signature. And that is really fulfilling and drives you into doing night shifts and building prototypes over the weekend and these kind of things.
Can understand, yeah. So what do you think comes next for you?
So at the moment, we are feeling very happy here at ProGraph. So we have a cool role in product and also thinking about the values of the company. So at the moment, we are very happy here. But of course, sometime in the future, the end of every company or could be an exit, and we have investors. So of course, we're working towards an exit. And of course, after this exit, we're gonna build some other products, pretty sure. So at the moment, it's fun. But there will be a time in the future when we do something different and build great products somewhere.
Yeah, so for me, the topic of clean tech, clean energy, these kind of topics. So where I have technology and a sustainable topic coming together, would be something I would be interested in the future.
Very nice. So we will look out for what you are doing and how the company is further growing. I'm excited to see it and to follow it.
Cool, thank you.
With that, we're already at the end. Thank you everyone for tuning in. And I tried to pick up as many questions as I could. Unfortunately, not all of them, but if you have more questions, you can find the LinkedIn profiles of Thomas and Paul in the chat as well. With that, thank you very much for joining and for taking the time to talk to me and to our and also answering the questions of our viewers today.
Cool. Thank you for your time.
It's been a pleasure to host the U-Talk. And if you liked it, please tune in again next week. Next Tuesday again at 4 p.m. we will have Martin Stucktai of the International Think Tank Consultancy Advisory Systemic as our guest. And he will share his perspective on how to redefine growth in the 21st century, how he envisions a sustainable economic system, and how we can actually decouple economic growth from sustainable development. I look forward to that talk. And with that, have a very nice sunny afternoon, and I'll see you next week. Thank you.